Hi, this is Bruce Rawles, and today I'm speaking with Susan Dugan. Today we're going to talk about the terror of scary monsters, hideous dark figures revealed from the unconscious mind, behaving in ways that seem unspeakably evil. That's right, we're going to talk about election projection. How's that? And we've even got a token pumpkin here to celebrate Halloween. So anyway, welcome, Susan.
Hi, well, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. We both thought it would be fun to talk about the election, but since we're actually recording this on Halloween and the two holidays are so close together, it seemed like it was fitting to talk about how that they're really the same holiday. You know, it's really an amalgam of two things that we make special in time to celebrate a duality that never happened. So anyway, I've got a handful of topics that we can talk about. I know Susan does too. So do you want to start in? And because I think we both agree that the election, which is happening next Tuesday in this country, the midterm elections, is a very appropriate topic for practicing A Course in Miracles principles of forgiveness and recognizing that we're projecting all this scary, spooky stuff that we see on our TV and computer screens and reading the newspapers and all this stuff, and it's so easy to get identified with our stuff and forget that it's our forgiveness classroom instead of a prison that we have made up.
So. Right, very true. Well, and to give people that maybe aren't from Colorado a little background, because not everybody in the United States is probably experiencing quite the bombardment of nasty campaign kinds of ads and emails and phone calls and the drama that we're experiencing. But we are what's called right now a purple state here in Colorado, and we were formerly a red state, which is a Republican state, and just kind of inched toward the blue side recently, and now are kind of considered an amalgam of a purple state. So what that means is that our electorate is especially divided 50-50 sort of down the middle, and much like the split mind, the ego thought of the that we all share outside the stream that is split over the idea of believing that we separated from God. And so we're acting that out in a particularly vicious way here this year, and it's very hard to escape even if you're just constantly taping your TV programs and stuff, you're going to see some of these ads, and you're going to hear a lot of the debate somewhere on the on the radio or in passing. And I know I work out of my office at home every day, and the phone rings non-stop all day long, because it's that close of a race, and we have some House and Senate races and state races here that are very, very close, and people have a lot of money and opinions and emotions invested in. So it's been interesting to watch that and try to as we have to watch our mind all the time, apply the Course's forgiveness whenever we're finding ourselves feeling very reactive. And everybody's on one side of this divide or another. That's the way it works here on Planet Crazy. So it's been interesting, I think, for me as having been someone who in the past was really quite political in my younger years, and very unconscious about how righteous I felt about my opinions, and how right I felt, and how I had no real thoughts about the unkindness of the condemnation that I was doing in my mind toward the other side. And I can't quite get away with that the way I used to, having practiced, now that I'm really someone committed to trying to heal my mind of this split and awaken from this nightmare of separate interests. So it's been a good classroom again, and and what it's revealing to me, just as all of our special relationships reveal to us, is just how much I want to hold on to my separate interests and my feelings of being superior to the other side in my opinions, to feeling better than and more enlightened than in the way I look at things, and on and on and on. We all do this kind of thing. But what I've been noticing is that the recognition that Ken always talked about, that everybody is fighting the same hard battle, and that the form of how people defend themselves from this unconscious guilt and fear in the mind is really very insignificant. I mean, it really is nothing. But that the content, we think, is everything, and we're all so frightened, and we're all so, our efforts to prove ourselves better than, more right and superior or lesser than. I mean, it doesn't really matter what side of this we want to be on, because part of us is rejoicing when we lose a battle too, because then we get to be the horrible victimized ones by this other side that is so crazy. And so the very battle for this that we engage in is, its real point is everybody shares the same battle, and the battle is trying to prove that we exist, but it's not our fault. It's their fault, and that somehow makes us, innocent in God's eyes. And of course,
face of innocence, huh?
Right, and of course it never works. It never works. There's always another battle. There's always another, race. We have a very, very temporary fix when we do win, whether it's a political election or an issue or a proposition that we're fighting for, or whether we temporarily win in our personal relationships and get someone to capitulate to our way of doing things and meet our needs. It's all very temporary. We're always going to be back in battle again, and so really the only way out is to see that we're going to. That in truth the battle is not serving me.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that we don't vote, or we don't, that we don't have our opinions, but it doesn't have to be conditional on, whether what the other person thinks or does can never really change God's love for them, and which means it can't change my love for them. Because in truth, I must learn to love myself, and the only way that I can love myself is to realize that we are the same, and that's the process of, that's the result of forgiveness, and the result of making our lives a classroom, and looking at all of our reactions, including our reactions to what's going on in our political arena, through the lens of the teacher of healing and forgiveness, instead of need and guilt and fear and blame.
Yeah, well put. Yeah, as you're talking, I was thinking, well, the compromise that we all made, or thought we made, was between perfect oneness and not that.
Right.
And so really our whole, you talk about our political system, and it seems like, we're still working on a flawed jurisdiction. And years ago, I kind of briefly got into the what's sometimes called the sovereignty movement or issues and that kind of thing. And when I found out that there were some things that weren't properly ratified, and including the tax code and a few things like that, and you can challenge some of those things based on a flawed jurisdiction, because if the jurisdiction doesn't apply, then you get thrown out of court, right? I mean, that's the whole premise, that our legal system has to apply to everyone equally. Well, that's a nice ideal, but and that's why I suppose in some ways we do have that metaphor is a nice inspiration, but what we all actually practice is far less than that egalitarian ideal. and and the principle of the jurisdiction, though, I think is really an important one, because the mistake that we all make is we're trying to choose between illusions. We've got illusion A and illusion B. We've got, a jersey A that's blue and a jersey B that's red, and like you say, then maybe sometimes we think we're purple, but in any choice among illusions is no real choice at all. And the only choice, if you want to use a metaphor, is a vertical one that's, gets us above the battlefield of duality, above the we-they paradigm, and puts us back into the mind where we can choose against the ego's dualistic nonsense and say, oh yeah, I can throw this out of my mind's court by saying, this doesn't apply. I mean, like you say, we still can vote. We still can do the things in the world that make sense, locally, globally, whatever, and be activists to whatever degree we feel inspired to do so. But if we can remember that my peace is being compromised whenever I invest in taking a side and identifying with it, that's hugely helpful, I find. And when you're saying you made the comment something about I'm somewhat applying this, with discipline or something. I forget exactly what you said. I was thinking, yeah, we're all ambivalent. We all, vote erratically, and that's the challenge, is that we all ride the fence. We can talk about politicians that are wishy-washy, but we all do the same thing, and that's part of I think taking the humor, bringing that back inside and realizing, oh, we're all just the same as the most heinous, abysmal, tyrannical ruler, and we're all the victims and we're all the victimizers, and it's all the same story. So if we can kind of look at it with a little bit of a gentle inner smile and say, oh yeah, I caught myself again, getting all worked up about issue A or ballot measure B or whatever, or candidate C and D, it's like it's all the same stuff. Not that, like you say, not that we shouldn't vote, but we vote with our minds far more often than we get a chance to go to the polls or mail in our absentee ballot, and then we also probably another whole topic we could spend time on is we vote with our wallets too, but that's just, again, a symbolic representation of the voting that we're doing. And I think I might have mentioned in a previous talk or two that there's a lady named Robin McWayne who gave a talk to a group that we had in Northern California called New Frontiers, the Gold Country, and she had been studying modern physics, and one of the things that she hit on that I thought was interesting was about the Planck's time constant, which basically suggests that the universe literally collapses in on itself and then is reborn about 10 to the 44th times per second, which is this unbelievably large number that we can't even fathom. We're projecting what we've elected in our minds over and over again. We're basically voting for what thought system we want to identify with that many times a second, if that interpretation is correct. But even if if the number's off, it's we're just a vast number of opportunities that we have to choose again, to think with a different thought system and let ourselves off the hook and everyone else at the same time. So.
Well, we really have that opportunity to change the purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's saying that I no longer want to use this arena, this other side, this other political group, this other viewpoint to justify my anger, to justify my feelings of victimization. I want to change the purpose to helping me awaken from the dream instead of rooting me more deeply in a dream that's leading me where I don't want to go, because where it's leading me is just into more and more pain and angst that never ever gets solved. Nobody here is happy with any result. I mean, again, we're very, very temporarily happy, and then we're angry again. We want to be angry, We want to have things not work out for us. I mean, if there's, and that's the way we set it up. You know, the Course is asking us to, Jesus is asking us to look at the problem as it is and not the way that you have set it up, which means look at it from my point of view as someone outside the dream, as an ego-free presence that sees the nonsense of this,
Right.
which is really all it is. But to us, it seems very, you know, again, because this is all unconscious, it seems very, very heavy, this guilt in our mind, so heavy that we have to, you know, the whole ego thought system, our bodies are programmed to get rid of it. And how do we get rid of it? We trash other people.
Right,
you know,
right.
we slime other people with our guilt. You know, if we want to use the Halloween stuff, we want to be Ghostbusters here. And so, you know, so we're the big slimer. And you know, that's what we want to do. And you can really see it. It's actually very helpful, I think, as Course students to watch some of the rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
On both sides of this, because what you soon see, I mean, you may or may, you know, you may disagree with what they're saying, and this is factual and this isn't factual, but what you can see that both sides are doing is they're using fear
To divide. Yeah.
I mean, to keep that, they're appealing to that primal fear that we have, which is born of the primal guilt that this really happened, that we really pulled off this separation. And they're saying, you know, look at what's going to happen if you don't protect your interests. And look at how this person has plundered your, your world, your safe world. And it's all about safety. It's all about, you know, what's going to keep me safe. And we have, okay, you know, this side has a list of things that they believe are going to keep them safe, and this side has a list of things that they believe are going to keep them safe, and they're different things, but the issue is still safety. It's still coming from the same idea that we are not safe here. We're not okay, you know, and if we don't take action, things are going to go to hell. Well, we're already in hell. You know, I mean, it really, when you see this and you watch what's happening, the emails that I get are, and this is from my party, of course, they're targeted at people that, you know, want to listen, and it's just, you know, all of the subject lines are devastation. Susan, we must, you know, we must act, we must rally now, you know, you won't believe the mayhem that's happening in the House of Representatives, and you know, and it's just, and you know, they're trying to get people to rally and to open their wallets, and you know, which is what it's all about. But it's what they're really trying to do is keep that fear alive.
Right.
And we're all trying to keep that fear alive. I mean, I'm not saying that they're doing it. You know, we're all complicit in keeping this story of sin, guilt, and fear alive. And at some point we have to say enough. At some point we have to say, you know, do I really want this? And I can change the purpose of it to you know, to going in a different direction, to beginning to go up the ladder that, you know, separation seemed to lead us down, to realizing that that we made up the ladder. We built a ladder and then we went down it. And you know, it's our job now to say, you know, enough. I don't want this anymore. It's hurting me, it's hurting everyone here. It's hurtful. Right. And you know, we want to heal. And so we can start to see that we're the same, you know, that these people are coming from the same scared place that I was and am, and I'm learning I don't want. And how do we do that? How do we demonstrate that? How do we fix that? By fixing ourselves, by fixing our own mind, by minding our own mind and minding our own classroom. And you know, where is my mind right now? Which teacher have I chosen? And we have 100% control over that. And that does make a difference. It does, you know, not in a world that isn't there, but in my mind and how I relate to the world. And you know, in the ultimate healing of the mind that is going to return us to the awareness of our prevailing innocence and our prevailing safety, which, you know, nothing in the world. The world is designed to take us away from that. So all of our fixes are completely futile.
And futile is actually a good pun, because you could spell it F-U-T-I-L-E, but also F-E-U-D-A-L. and of course the feudal lord, that to go back to prior eras, is really the ego. I mean, basically that's the evil dictator that tells us that we're victims or victimizers. Either one works, and puts us in that divided battlefield. What I find is interesting is when I look at particularly, just I think this is such a great example is any kind of political issue that seems to divide people, and I think, okay, well, first of all, what are the shared interests, and what do we really have in common? Well, we all, ultimately want to wake up from this nightmare dream and take off our Halloween masks that say we're different, and sometimes on Halloween's I'll dress up. I wear a political shirt that I got a few years ago.
Stand up again, Bruce.
Sure. This is from the San Francisco Mime Troupe. I got this when they were touring a few years ago. You could probably guess, it was a few years back. But anyway, but it's interesting to just kind of look at, and I found when I'm demonizing demonizers, that was like a big aha moment, because I realized, okay, well, yeah, there's some people that are slinging the mud and furthering the division in the political ads and campaigns and so forth. But if I demonize those people, then I'm saying I'm different or separate from any of the people that I'm watching.
Right.
And I'm dehumanizing and depersonalizing and disconnecting basically a part of myself, and maintaining this belief in separation to the degree that I want to invest in a difference of any kind, whether it's better than or less than, like you say. It doesn't matter if we think we're inferior or superior or just different in any way that makes us on a heart level an alien to each other.
Right. And when we find ourselves reacting, that's exactly when, that's why it can be instructive to actually watch these. The course isn't about trying to, not pollute our minds with what's going on in the world. That's our classroom, and so to look at it and to see, as you said, when I'm looking at some of the hate slinging, mudslinging stuff that's going on in the ads, which have been particularly, vicious this year. They do, because when the stakes are high for the ego, it's going to be very vicious, and so but to notice, if I'm starting to get really angry with what's being said, that I feel is a lie and is horrible and whatever, then it's my mind in need of healing. I am right there with the ego if I'm feeling reactive.
Right.
So it isn't to not react. We can't. We're going to react here. Bodies are made to react.
Yeah.
But the practice of this is to really be mindful of our reactions and to question the cause. The cause is not what's being said about the candidate that I identify with. The cause is that I think that candidate is me. I think that candidate is my guilty mind. It's an attack on me, and so it's always it's that guilt in my mind that I'm always trying to defend against. And it can only be healed in my mind. And so from the position that we think we're in, and so I've got to go back to the decision-making mind, which is not in this body, and say I want to join with the part of me that knows this is not me. This is not the problem. The problem is that I believe I'm separate, that I believe I'm me, in the first place. And
personhood is scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. And again, the ego, we tend to say that the ego is always telling, it has this 24/7 rant, and the ego is spewing all of this garbage. But who's the ego? When we've chosen the ego, we're the ego. So we have another teacher, and we can choose that teacher, and it, you know, all we have to do is say, it's, you know, the reason that I'm upset right now, it's not for the reason I think. Lesson 5, it's that's not the reason. You know, no one outside of my mind and nothing outside of my mind has the power to take my peace away or my safety away. That's a lie. And then, you know, I'd like to see this differently. And then we wait. You know, it's not. I mean, it's really just the watching. That's our only job. Is that first 2 steps, really. You know. And so, you know, I liked what you were saying about the ego always. When our mind is on ego or has joined with ego, we're always trying to emphasize differences.
Yeah.
And we were talking about lesson 195 earlier, and you know that lesson is all about exposing the ego's addiction to differences and the emphasis of differences, and you know, says love makes no comparison, and you know, that one line or that one section, and gratitude can only be sincere if it be joined to love. We offer thanks to God our Father that in us all things will find their freedom. It will never be that some are loosed while others still are bound. You know, this is an all-inclusive, this leads us to an all-inclusive love that is not of this world. The result of practicing forgiveness is to see that we are the same. As you're saying, we're all fighting the same hard battle, we all share the same split mind split over the belief in separation, and the same desperate desire to have it healed. We just don't know how, you know? And so the Course is giving us the means of how to heal our mind, which on some level is healing all minds. And you know, we don't have to worry about all minds. We have to worry about our mind. You know, that's all that's necessary, and all we really can work with.
Our classroom is adequate with the lessons we get each day, isn't it? that was one of the things in one of Ken Wapnick's audios that I really like. I've been listening to the one about climbing the ladder home recently when that. And there's a lady in the audience who's asking, well, how do I, you know, unearth and exhume some of this, you know, dark unconscious guilt? And you know, and Ken says, well, I'm not sure if you really want to do that. Basically, in other words, I think what I got from it is, you know, give yourself a break. Don't scare yourself more than you need to, because just in any given moment, that's all we really need to do is be mindful each moment and just look at our projections and our victimhood and our grievances and all the yada yada stuff that the ego tries to blather on about, and just watch it and just say, oh, I can choose not to judge myself for these thoughts that really aren't me, and they're not the other person, and they're really nobody. And
exactly,
it's just, and it doesn't, like we've been saying, it doesn't preclude doing the things that are appropriate in the world and being normal and just being kind, but we can, you know, chew gum and walk metaphorically by just being mindful of the stuff that we're demonizing and politicizing in our own mind, and that's why I think it's kind of fun to, like you say, to you know, not be a hermit, but you know, watch the media. And actually, some of my favorite shows are like Stewart and Colbert and Bill Maher, and watch how, you know, some of the you know, the lampooning of the lampooners, and realizing it really is a joke. And if I can remember that this is a projection that is presented for me to heal, and no matter how it comes to me, then I can be free to choose again to undo the ego's you know, maladaptive solution. It's because there's really no problem in truth. We're just making up and regurgitating a bad dream. It's just a nightmarish Halloween scary movie scenario of differences and you know, projected choices that are all on in the dream battlefield. So yeah.
Right, and you know, I mean, it's true. I mean, Halloween's a great opportunity to think about. You know, everybody's really just wearing these costumes, and you know, we like to scare ourselves, don't we? We really love to scare ourselves. Yeah. Should I put my little
Sure, yeah, this might be a good time to bring out your puppet there. Yeah, yeah.
tradition?
No, Mr. Bill. Yeah, really.
Our we get a lot of trick-or-treaters at our house, like a lot, and
Yeah.
so we decorate. We have, all kinds of decorations out there. We buy the talking zombies, and it's pretty over the top, but it is pretty funny to think about it along those lines. We're all just playing this game, and it's a scary game that we're playing, but it's not real, and really, and that something else that you were saying, that really it's that moment to moment practice of this. That's all we have to do. We don't have to go and dredge up the past. We don't have to go and analyze our childhood. I mean, those things can be very helpful at the beginning to actually lead you to a spiritual journey, because you have to sort of see that that's not really the cause.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work completely. And people have to calm the body down and the emotions down enough to be able to embrace this. But but ultimately, it's that moment to moment practice that's really going to help us see, what we're doing, and that's all we're asked to do. It's really just watching our reactions, and through that process, we become so much more sensitive to how we're feeling, because we're not just robotically projecting it on other people and experiencing it as an incoming problem. We're beginning to see that the cause is me. I've met the enemy, and the cause is me, and so
What was right?
yeah, right. But the great power of this path is in the decision-making mind. And Ken did such a brilliant and instructive job of explaining how that works, and really hammering away at the fact that this is, we are not bodies. We are really a mind, and one mind, and then that mind is capable at any moment of choosing again. And so the focus of this course is always completely, it's outward in the sense that we pay attention to our classroom, but it's always taking it back inward, back to the mind, up to the mind, if you will, to be examined in the light, right? So we're taking all of these dark, scary thoughts in the cesspool of of our seeming lives, and then we're raising them to doubt. We're raising them up to the light of doubt and true awareness, in which we see there isn't a cause. First we see the cause is all the same, and then we see there's no cause. That the separation never happened, and that there is no sin. And everybody here that's walking around in form, believing that there is, and believing in victims and victimizers, and siding with victims, and attacking victimizers because they feel that that's justified and that that's different. We begin to see that it's all coming from the same victimized place of the ego thought system, which was made up and then forgotten. And so we're kind of retracing our steps through this. But our contribution to this is just paying attention to how am I feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
We were just looking at something in chapter 4, and that was emphasizing in the group that I teach here in Denver. And right in the beginning of the course, Jesus is saying, the way that you learn this is how are you feeling right now? That's paying attention to your feelings is exactly what's going to tell you which teacher you've chosen. And
most of the time, if we're not paying attention, there's always a little tilt of some sort that's on our inner dashboard that is suggesting, yeah, you're not really most of the time. I'm saying this for myself. Paying attention to those, like you say, the little subtle discomforts and annoyances and grievances, and because we have everything so backwards. It's like we're looking through the binoculars backwards. Our little tiny world that is so myopic. In truth, we think of this little part of space-time that we call a home inside a neighborhood, inside a state, inside a country, inside a planet, inside a galaxy, and we forget that even on the level of form and the physical dream that we've made up, we've got it totally backwards in terms of perspective in both space and time. And so we're going to make judgments that are not only unfounded, but just whacked out. And as you were talking earlier, I was thinking, which I'm enjoying everything you're saying immensely. And one of the things that struck me is I was picturing, when you talk about the decorations for Halloween, and I was thinking, looking out an upstairs window at kids trick or treating and clamoring for the conquest of candy, and I'm thinking, well, that's the same thing as the election. I mean, that's really no different. It's all the same game. We're all just playing for supposed advantages that we can get over the other side, and
the goods, right? We want the goods.
yeah, exactly. We want all the goodness and the fake innocence that's separate from the guilt that's projected out onto that other mean candidate or hideous monster that is on somebody's lawn, half emerging from the grass, and that kind of thing. But it's all the same silly game. It's just harmless play in truth. But we don't see it until we choose to see shared interests and to be kind and to recognize that there's nothing that really is an advantage to being right as an ego over the happiness of being under the tutelage of our inner kindness teacher and just saying, oh yeah, my being right, whether it's marking a ballot or going to the right house and ringing the right doorbell for the biggest payload of candy, it's not really getting me anywhere. It's just stuff I don't need, in truth.
Right. And I think, again, it's really that trying to be really honest with ourselves and really paying attention, again, to how we're feeling.
Yeah.
That is going to tell us which teacher we've chosen. And I mean, we've talked about this before, that really it's so important to not try to do this by yourself, because we don't know how to do it by ourselves. I mean, then we just become a spiritual ego that's trying to manipulate our own feelings and say, well, mouth these platitudes about what the Course is saying, but we're never really letting it into our hearts. And we have to really open our hearts, and which means looking with Jesus or Holy Spirit, whatever symbol you want to use, at at how much I really want to be right, at how much I really do hate them, at how much I really want all the candy for myself, Mm-hmm. And I mean, we have to look at our own selfishness, right, which of course is a defense against believing that we lost the love of God, we destroyed the love of God, and so this is our we have to try to compensate somehow. So of course we're going to do this, but it's necessary for us to find our innocence again, to first look with Jesus at our side and at how much it hurts, at the darkness, because we can't get to the other side without that process. So it is saying to Jesus, this is really hurting me. Help me to see this with you. And it's hard we can't see it by ourselves.
No.
We'll never be able to see it by ourselves, meaning by the person I think I am, with all the baggage that I think I have, and all the things that have formed the way I look at the world. So we need an ego until we're at the top of the ladder, and we recognize that we are ultimately the same as that ego-free presence. Until our ego has been undone, then we need to really have that presence with us, and that is a part of just being really, again, really cultivating that relationship, trying to be really to make that our goal again. Our purpose is the purpose of my day now is to see every morning that I get up, to see everyone and everything through those eyes. I mean, I'm not saying I do that, but that's my goal. I mean, I can at least set that goal, and I can at least throughout the day recognize when I'm not doing it.
Right.
Which means paying a lot of attention, because I'm not doing it a lot of the time. No, really, I'm not. If I'm paying attention, that's the truth.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're all in the same boat, and I think that's really part of the solution is remembering, like you were saying earlier, we're all fighting the same hard battle. We're all doing the we-they paradigm. We're all voting with our mind for one or two thought systems. When but we forget about the other thought system that's above the battleground, above the political football arena of whose jersey, whose costume is better than the other, and
Perfect example of that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, the course says we go home together or not at all. So it really is in the the lifting of the veil section at the very end. I mean, that's why we're not home, even when we've been doing the course for a long time. We've made it our goal. We believe in everything that it says, intellectually anyway, and we think we believe in it in our hearts. But we have this very formidable unconscious resistance. There's part of us that's terrified of this, because what does it mean for me ultimately? And we don't know. That's unknown. And so of course we're going to be afraid of it, and we're not asked to go faster than our fear will allow. We're just asked, all Jesus asks of us. I mean, it really is striking me this time going through the text again, how little is really being asked of us, and yet how ridiculously difficult we seem to make it. And it's just, I mean, we're not asked to be holy. We're not asked to be all loving. We're not asked to be good all the time. Right. All we're asked to do is to have a little willingness to be wrong, and to pay attention in our classroom and throughout our day, every moment, to say, which teacher have I chosen? Is this what I want? Is this rooting me more deeply in the dream, or is this helping me awaken, which will bring me to peace? And that's what I say I want. So it's not that it's really a no-brainer. That's the problem, is we want to make it a brainer, but it's a no-brainer, And so it really is that, and what it leads to over time doing that, and I'm seeing this a lot more of this time. So that's encouraging. This election round, anyway. That's with personal life, up and down, but I'm seeing a lot more, actually, even in my personal classrooms too, that the compassion comes a lot quicker. It just it's I can see that it's the same. Yeah. It's the same need to be right that I have. It's the same belief that I'm the victim that I have. It's the same belief that you're the one that's not bringing me, that's interfering with my goals that I have. It's the same need to be better than or less than that I have. It's all the same,
Right. The inner domestic battles are no different than geopolitical thermonuclear war. I mean, it's the same. The hangnail and the Holocaust are just orders of degree, rather than just the form is different, but the content's the same. This morning on Facebook, somebody posted, which I shared, a really funny video. Actually, I think my wife actually posted and another friend as well posted a funny video about just things that couples argue about. And I'm thinking, well,
did you put it on Facebook?
It's on Facebook. Yeah, it's pretty good. But it's just typical silly trivial stuff, because we're all looking through the binoculars backwards. We're all making such big deals out of what's truly nothing. And I'm reminded of this earlier this week in one of the study groups I attend. There was a couple of people who were basically, in more than a casual, friendly way, disagreeing about what one of the passages that the Course meant. And then I was reminded, and so I shared this, because it was perfect, was the story I had heard from, I think it was from Absence from Felicity, or maybe it was Carol Howell's book about Bill Thetford in one of the study groups that he was in, where people were arguing over something in a particular passage in A Course in Miracles, and so he tore that particular page out of the book and crumpled it up, threw it on the floor, and says, if this comes between you and your brother, it's not worth it.
Right.
And how often, like you say, do we pay attention to our feelings and what's really going on when we start getting into arguments or disagreements and making those big deals, instead of just saying, yeah, okay, it doesn't really matter what either party does behaviorally, but what really matters is what's going on in the mind.
Right.
But we forget that. We think that the form of the behavior is important. That we think that the outcome that's the big deal is what happens on the dream screen rather than in our mind's projection room. And but we're electing those representatives 24/7, and
Right.
not just in political election years. It's we're voting for what we want each person to be, either a demon, a Halloween figure of hideous proportions, or a savior at every moment, and that's a choice that we're constantly making. And
And really, when we do change our purpose for, to make this a classroom, then we really do see that. I mean, this is really a big. I mean, it really is a huge opportunity, and I'm just not saying that. I mean, I've experienced this to heal, to have a holy instant, to have a shift of mind that is so. I mean, it's very, very humbling, but in a way that doesn't that is a relief.
Yeah.
That is not, it's not a put down of it's not the humbling of the way the ego looks at it. It's a humbling of, I'm so glad I'm wrong. And that's really what we want. We want to be wrong ultimately about what we think we are, because that's what that's what everyone's secretly craving.
Right.
Please tell me that I'm wrong about what I think I am, this hateful person that can never, that has this insatiable need for something I can't even name. I just know that everything I've tried doesn't fill it, And so we have an opportunity through these interactions with others in our macro and micro worlds to really experience that healing, and that is what, and that's what motivates us, is more and more too, as we work with the course. Our pain of choosing the ego becomes greater. It does, because we're more aware of it. It seems to me, but we have this other. We have the result of forgiveness that is so compelling, and we know is everything we want, and the problems and the complexity and the drama and the need and the blame, all of it just drops away, and it's such a relief when we are able to make that shift. And of course, we don't make it. We just do what we just talked about. We just go through the steps of this, and the practice, and the watching our mind, and the willingness, and the asking, and this is being undone for us. The awareness of what we are dawns on the mind that is ready to choose it and accept it, and and that process, that's a process, but we don't have to worry about the process. It's just it's again, our contribution is so little, and to gain so much. So I mean, it's definitely such a. I mean, this path works.
Yeah.
And in ways that other paths that I've tried really don't ever get to that essential angst within, and sense of loss that we're all walking around with, which makes us such nutcases.
Such monsters. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and as you're saying, again, wonderful comments. I was thinking, well, gee, and I think Gary Renard's teachers point this out a lot as well, that the peace of mind is not a small gift, and we not only get the undoing of the ego over an extended period of time, which we don't really see that because we're, again, so myopic in time as well as space, but we are, like you say, the more we look at our feelings, reveal when the ego is mucking about in our mind, and just watch those shenanigans, gently laugh at it, and release that, because we realize, well, that's not really working out for me, and then allow that inner kindness teacher, our Holy Spirit, the memory we took into the dream with us, to lead us back out of the dream, and allow that awareness to replace the trivia, the little meaningless insignificant issues that we've made big deals,
Mhm.
and candy trinkets and election results and whatever. I'm just picking or seasonal
Right.
idea du jour, but any time, regardless of throughout the year, throughout our lifetimes, if we can just, like you say, remember that peace of mind is not a little gift that we get from looking at our feelings and looking at our thoughts and bringing them back into the mind and letting the light that inclusive shared interest thought system will bring to it, and allow um, the the meaninglessness and the silliness of it to just make it a peaceful, laughable experience that not only brings the immediate result of that feeling of peacefulness, but also like you say, it builds, and the gap
Right.
between catching it and releasing it
Right.
gets shorter and shorter.
Right. And
You know,
again, the more we can just stay focused on right now,
yeah,
because we can make ourselves crazy, and the ego loves us to get involved in our progress with this, and loves us to look at, any time that we're going back to the past and into the future, we are, with our coursework, with any of this, it's a sure sign that the ego has joined the journey. So it's really just that very, where am I right now, and being patient, using Jesus as our teacher in the course, the one that's speaking to us in the course, as our, and who is sort of our mentor through all of this, to, modeling the way we try to learn to treat ourselves. I mean, the self I think I am and the self I think others are, with the same patience and gentleness and forgiveness and kindness that he exhibits with us. I mean, he's not worried about us getting home.
right, right.
We don't really need to be worried about that either. And so when we find ourselves doing that, I mean, the thing that we do most often is when we're stuck in resistance, is that we blame ourselves.
Yeah,
And we bash ourselves, and I just became afraid again. That's something that Ken emphasized a lot in the last few years of his life, and it really is so helpful, because it just, that gentleness that he always asked us to look at, and I think that really, sorry about that, that really helps, um, you know, just kind of, it takes the edge off of everything, and sometimes we just have to wait out
yeah,
our resistance, and sometimes we're stuck. I had something last weekend where I just couldn't get out of it. I was so angry, really, and part of me knew that I wanted to be angry. We can't. It's not invisible to us now that the cause is there, but the pain of it was still quite excruciating, and maybe even more so again, because when we can't let it go and we know we could let it go.
yeah. I think that brings up an important point, because when we just kind of blindly, stumble through life and have made however many lifetimes we've made a practice of ignoring those promptings and not paying attention to our feelings and our thoughts and what's really going on inside. Then when we start to, open the crypt to really look at, what's behind the scenes in our real political landscape inwardly, and say, "Ooh, this is scary stuff," and the tendency is just slam the door. But then I was thinking, well, again, if we're kind of looking down at the street and seeing the trick-or-treaters playing their game and realizing, well, that's just my projection, and they're not really scary; they're just dressed up as scary things.
Right.
And the same with our political battles, whether it's in something that we're battling about our bodies or our families or our communities or our jobs, or whatever the issue is, it's all just a masquerade. It's basically a make-believe, made-up story that we've took too seriously. And since you mentioned Ken's work, one of the comments in this audio I've been listening to a lot lately is about very appropriate for Halloween. Orson Welles' reading of the War of the Worlds on the radio years ago, and this is, I guess, back in the 30s or 40s, and he talks about how I think it was actually done on Halloween night, in fact, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it was around the time here, but what happened was he gave an introduction to what this dramatization that he was going to do for a couple of minutes, and said, "This is all made up." And so don't freak out or anything. Don't get scared. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but this is all make believe. None of this happened. But then he immediately shifted into a very realistic radio journalistic presentation of an attack on Grover's Mills in New Jersey, or wherever it was supposed to take place. I think that might have been it. And and so this whole War of the Worlds epic became so real in some of the listeners' minds that there was serious things that happened. I don't think anybody was killed, but there were like people who were doing pretty crazy things as a result of taking that seriously. And Ken was saying that that's such a great metaphor, because we scare ourselves so often by taking the dream seriously, but the metaphor is that we forgot, we've chosen to forget that this was all, a reenactment of a tiny mad idea. This is just a dramatization of something that never happened, but we're taking seriously, and we've forgotten that we're in the projection booth and can just gently laugh at it and just say, "Oh, I can choose a different interpretation."
We've forgotten that we actually chose to experience this very, this aspect of that thought of separation.
Right.
The possible consequence of that thought of separation realized. And so, so we were actually reviewing, living one possibility of what that might have looked like had it been possible.
Right.
So,
right.
And it is helpful to see that it's just all costumes. It's just all smoke and mirrors. But that awareness comes to us through the practice again. Usually, we usually can't get there intellectually. We just can't.
Right.
Because everything in our brain is screaming otherwise. So it has to be the intellectual understanding is helpful as a foundation. And telling us where this is really leading us, but from the perspective of where we are in seeming bodies, we still need to do this practice, because that's what's going to help us actually heal, I think.
Yeah.
So, and I think we've probably been talking for such a long time here, but I don't know.
I think it's been about an hour. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone has survived listening to all of this, I think we should also just mention that they just came out with. The foundation just announced yesterday that Ken's long-awaited Journey Through the Text has just been published and is available at the Foundation for A Course in Miracles website. If you go to their bookstore, it's probably also on the homepage under latest releases, I would think. But that it's very exciting, and this has been again something that I'm sure is a masterpiece. And as like his Journey Through the Workbook and manual are, and it will be so helpful for people. I wish I'd had it when I started teaching the text here in Denver a few months ago, but if we're in Chapter 4, at least it will help us inform the rest of our journey, and highly recommend that to anyone that is interested in more deeply understanding and practicing the Course. So.
Yep. And all of Ken's works are superb, as far as I can tell.
It's true. There, that honestly, about 2 years after I found the Course 11 years ago, the first thing that I did, I recognized that I was not really getting it. That something was terribly wrong still with what I knew that the practice was forgiveness, but I was still doing it the old way, and so I started borrowing. At that time, it was videos from the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center, because they had the collection of the 31 videos of a workshop that he had done on the text, and I listened to those, just trying to kind of begin to immerse myself in the metaphysics and what Ken was teaching, probably maybe 3 times through, while I was doing other things, while I was working out or cooking or whatever, and and honestly, that is what turned everything around for me with the course. I finally could understand what it was saying, and I finally could understand how to practice it, and thus began
Yeah.
the long road.
I can totally relate to that. I was just thinking of a metaphor that probably worked for me. I was sort of, you know, doing it on sort of superficial level, and I was beginning to get some of the core ideas, but not really putting them together. And sort of like I was
Right.
getting the launch pad ready
I was
back
missing a whole lot.
back in the mid '80s. But then about 7 years ago, I stumbled upon Gary Renard's books, and it's like, oh my gosh! And that was like, okay, lift off, and then after a year or so, I realized, well, Ken's work is just, that I had just touched on briefly back in the day, and then it's like, oh my gosh, there's just so much there. And now I'm just finished reading the FAQs on the FACIM website, and I'm a number.
Wonderful resource, yeah.
And I'm just going to go through and read all of 1,400 or whatever of them, and they're brilliant. I mean, everything that Ken has touched is just so, concentrated wisdom, and then the humor too that comes across, and yet
those were written. I was told by various people on the staff over a long period of time, always approved by Ken.
Well, they were all beautifully done.
They're amazing, yeah. What an opportunity for everybody there. And I have to give another plug for the staff at the foundation. I did some interviews with them recently, and I've attended 2 of the academies. I'm not going to be able to, it turns out, unfortunately, attend in November, but since Ken died, I've attended the March and the July Academy that were the week-long ones.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still doing workshops all the time, and there's a wonderful November one coming up if people are out there and can get to it. And they're awesome. The staff is so inspiring, and their stories are so inspiring, and they really have stepped up even more in ways that are just very, very palpable since Ken's passing. So I just would say to people, if you haven't been out there, try to get out there sometime and really see them in person. And
yeah, I had the fortunate opportunity to do that just for a day in early June, and really glad I did.
Yeah, they're really great. So, all right, I guess we should wind this up. So
yeah, it's just been fun as always, and just to put in a plug for your work, Susan, you've got a wonderful blog, foraysandforgiveness.com, and I always enjoy reading the posts, and mine is ACIM blog, and it's always fun to share this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, and happy Halloween and election, everyone, and let's all remember to our dream battles too seriously.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.